everyone, and welcome to our latest Retail Think Tank session. I'm Alicia Esposito, VP of Content for Retail Touchpoints, and I'm super excited to have on the show with me today Gary Hawkins, author of Bionic Retail and CEO of the Center for Advancing Retail and Technology. Gary, thanks so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
And obviously, we're here mainly to talk about your newest book, Bionic Retail. But I feel like it's important to do a bit of a lead up because you have authored several other books like Building the Customer Specific Retail Enterprise, Customer Intelligence, Retail in the Age of AI, and of course, all of the other articles, white papers, thought leadership pieces that you've done over the years. I always like to ask this among our authors and thought leaders in this space. How did your experience or learnings from all of this other work that you've been doing over the years kind of led to this latest piece? Like, were there any connecting points or areas of inspiration that you really wanted to dig into for this?
So, great question. I think and hope that a lot of my work over the years sort of connects or, flows from one thing to another. Certainly I drew on some of my experiences as a retailer, innovating, early on around loyalty, around understanding using customer data, and so on. Uh, but what really triggered me to write Bionic Retail was, I talked to retailers of all sizes across the country nearly every day. And what I found increasingly was that retail executives were inevitably focused on sort of the next cool thing, the next shiny object, the next neat capability, new innovation, et cetera. And in my mind, they were missing the bigger picture. Like, what's behind all this new innovation? Why now? What's going on? And what are the implications of sort of that background? And so that's what really triggered me to write the book, was to help retail understand that, we're now living in a world of the exponential growth of technology. And while everyone knows that word exponential, very few people truly understand what that means, right? We all, as human beings, sort of have this habit of, we hear a word exponential and it means fast, but it's not fast, it's accelerating. And that means that every day things are getting faster and faster. And I don't think that the retail industry really understood this, the implications of that. And that's what drove me to write the book.
Excellent. So, in a nutshell, how would you define or describe Bionic Retail? So, I really appreciate your note that, our industry has a tendency of really pointing out a specific tech or tactic and being like, aha, that's the thing, right? Like, that's going to be the thing to change it all, or that's going to be the answer to my problems, rather than looking at the bigger, more holistic picture. So if you were to identify, the gap that you're trying to fill or the real need, obviously you have your background as a retailer yourself, but is it kind of to drive people to think through that more holistic lens? Like, how would you kind of break it down for the folks listening right now?
So you just used the word gap, and that's really how I think of this. And I think the way to summarize it is that the pace of change outside retail organizations, outside the retail industry even, is moving far, far faster than the pace of change within retail organizations. And so there's this growing gap as we continue to move forward, as the pace of change, as technology continues to accelerate up this exponential growth curve. And traditional retail is just sort of on this much more linear path to what I think of as the path to purgatory. I think to begin to move into and overcome that gap, retailers in particular need to let go of the, well, we've always done it this way type of thinking, right? I think that again, retailers I talk to, many of the established practices, processes, we've always done it this way type of thinking that has made retail successful for, the better part of a century, may not no longer be the best thing to work in this new world. And I think retailers need to identify some of those things and then set them aside, because it's really that thinking that seems to get in the way of retailers realizing the full benefits of new innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a few influencers or factors that you call out when describing this new era, and it's largely driven by faster processing power, big data, and AI, and how they're all kind of fusing together and creating this innovation flywheel of sorts, which I find to be very interesting. So, I guess, how does this translate into the world of retail or within the world of retail? Because I feel like we've been talking about this idea of change and acceleration. So, what does this actually look like in contextual terms?
So again, really good question. And I think again, part of what I was trying to accomplish with the book was helping people, gain some knowledge as to what really is happening. From that knowledge, a deeper understanding of the world we live in today, and then, okay, what do I do about it? Right. And I think that innovation flywheel idea is I hope a good way to think about it. And that as that flywheel accelerates, as we again move up and out this growth curve, there's going to be more and more new innovation, more and more new capabilities. And I think retailers, number one, need to create systems and processes to maintain awareness and discovery of new capabilities, and then pair that with an understanding and implications of some of these new things. Because many of and I think we're going to see this more and more, new technologies, new capabilities coming into the industry truly are going to be
Mhm.
disruptive. They're going to dramatically change the way things have been done in the past. And many retailers aren't ready for
Yeah.
that.
So let's dig into the why they're not ready for that, because you've mentioned this mindset of, oh, we've always done it a certain way. You've made mention of culture. So let's dig into those pain points a little bit further, I guess, like what you've seen in your conversations, or heard rather, and what you've seen firsthand as a retailer. And then maybe, any actions or ways that they can start to kind of chip away at these issues. Because I feel like, technology is great, right? But if you don't have the people, the processes and practices, like you said, that's a very important foundational layer that I think influences the success or failure of a tech investment.
No, that's absolutely right. So, I to your question, I in hindsight realized that I began to bump into this almost 30
Mm.
years ago when I launched one of the first loyalty programs in the US supermarket sector. At that time, I had been reading about a couple retailers in Asia that had started frequent shopper programs, right? Using, a card the shopper would have to trigger electronic discounts at checkout, as opposed to tearing paper coupons out of the ad that many retailers at that time were using. I realized enough about technology to know that, gee, we could append the ID of that card to every transaction, begin building up, a record of a customer's shopping over time and so on, right? Things we take for granted today. And it was really sort of that insight that led me to, okay, we need to start frequent shopper program, loyalty program, because I think this data, this information could really change the game for us. The resistance I ran into, not only amongst my team, right, and the people that worked with us, even our management team initially, was really, I don't want to say surprising, but that was where I first began to really bump into the, well, gee, we've always done it this way. This is a big change. I'm scared about that. I don't want to do this, right? And I've seen that play out time and again over the years in different areas. Something I'm seeing in the marketplace today. Many retailers, certainly grocery retailers, continue to put out the weekly ad. Now, maybe it's moved from a paper ad to a
Mm.
digital ad, right? A PDF or whatever format, but it's still that mass promotion filled weekly ad. Rather than, gee, let's take advantage of new AI and new capabilities to put out a personalized ad that's filled with products that the shopper, each individual shopper, really wants to buy, right? And retailers just can't let go of that weekly ad. So another example, just one other quick example I'll share. um, I saw a company that brought to market a really powerful AI merchandising capability that would help a retailer project out what items to put together on the front page of an
Mm.
ad and at what time, right? What date to put them out, along with what price to maximize sales, baskets, et cetera, et cetera. That capability ran right into the category managers that had been doing the same thing for years, if not decades. And, well, I know how to do this better than the machine does. So we're going to resist this and fight back. And that was the biggest problem. Technology
Mhm.
worked great. People didn't accept it.
Yeah. So what happens in those cases, right? Is it a matter of letting the value of the technology kind of speak for itself? Is it doing more extensive learning and, educational opportunities so like people can not just hear the benefits but also experience it firsthand? Because I can imagine, there are plenty of folks that are trying to make the case for certain technologies or shifts even at an organizational level. But change management is hard, right? So, are there any
Yes,
recommendations for that?
so obviously, every circumstance is a little different, right? But many times it's tough to let the technology speak for itself if you can't get it
Right.
implemented, or at least implemented correctly. So I guess what I've seen most successful, and certainly for bigger projects, bigger initiatives, is it begins at the top with the CEO, C level commitment to this. That backed up with a lot of time spent around education, getting buy-in from relevant executives, people through the organization to actually implement it correctly and do it the right way. So, as you just said, change management is hard, but many times in my experience, these things have to be driven from the top, and it's got to be buttressed with a good amount of education and then building consensus and buy-in around that inspiration.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen examples. I mean, we all probably have just, paying close attention to the media and case study examples. But as we think about the innovation flywheel, are there any retailers, I mean, obviously other than Amazon, because I feel like everyone kind of associates flywheel and innovation with that company. So maybe let's not go there. Are there any others that you think are really embracing this flywheel and are not just, thinking technology, but really building a culture around this innovation and making sure that they're always thinking a few steps ahead, so to speak, of what the customer needs and different ways for that brand to show up and serve the customer with all of that in mind?
So there's a couple things I think that come out of what you just asked about. Um, Beyond Amazon, companies I speak to in the book are certainly Walmart
Mm.
and Kroger. And I have to give Walmart a good amount of credit, right? Being the world's largest retailer, massive organization. Um, the way they have been able to uh, really undertake this digital transformation has been, in my mind, really impressive. And I think Walmart is a great example of a traditional retailer that, while it hasn't all been smooth sailing, made a commitment to undergoing this transformation and evolving their business. Kroger, I think, in a similar way, is right up there alongside Walmart in how they approach innovation and how they think about it. and how it can be used to improve the shopping experience, their business, etc. Um, Sort of alongside that, one of the biggest transformations that I'm seeing is traditional retail evolving towards a more digital operating platform. Now, and I tried to describe all this in the book. Amazon was really the first to build and do this. Walmart, though, is running hard to try and accomplish the same thing. And by that, I mean this. Think about traditional retail today. As retail grew over time, they began adding departments, functional areas, merchandising, marketing, operations, right, human relations, et cetera, et cetera. Each of those areas effectively a silo that has its own applications, many times its own data to do what it does. And over time, maybe marketing needed a bit of data the merchandising group had, so they called IT to create an integration. And then, operations needed something this group had, so they called IT to create another integration. What's happened over time is traditional retail has grown more and more complex because of these silos and all these point-to-point integrations. I use the term, very scientific term, retail has become a giant hairball of
Yeah.
technology, right? Different systems and integrations trying to make everything work together. What Amazon did going back 20 years ago, what Walmart is doing today, is bringing all their data together in a unified data foundation to make it available to anyone across the organization. Doing that makes it far, far easier to deploy new AI applications on top of that data. They don't have to worry about point-to-point integrations. They can access that data through standard APIs and standard interfaces. And the benefits of that are immense. It begins to eliminate that hairball. It makes things more efficient. It makes it faster, easier to deploy new capabilities, especially AI capabilities. And that's what's so powerful today.
No, that's great. I mean, beyond AI, since this has been a very underlying aspect of our conversation, and rightfully so, right? I think it's interesting to see the conversation evolve from this very buzzy tech to we're starting to see actual meaningful conversations happening, tangible use cases and examples. And I mean, let's be real, we've been talking about AI for, I mean, I've been in the industry for 12 years now. Like 10 of those years, I think we've been talking about AI powered solutions, but now it's
Yeah.
more so part of the cultural zeitgeist, so to speak. But is there anything else that's happening today that you think is presenting a lot of opportunity, either fully realized or not fully realized, that you think is important to note, considering this bigger conversation around accelerated change and innovation, and of course, the role of data and technology?
So I guess there's two areas I would
Okay.
point to, maybe three. But the first is an area that is right on the brink of just exploding. And that is going to be augmented
Mm-hmm.
reality, but not AR, through our smartphones like we've all, or many of us have experienced it so far. What's happening is the next generation of smart glasses are coming to market. Some people may remember the old Google
Oh yeah.
glasses of 10 or 12 years ago, those odd looking things with the camera
People love
stuck
to
out in
hate
front.
those.
Didn't, yeah, didn't go anywhere. But the next generation of smart glasses are going to be much more like everyday glasses, like many of us wear. They will be wirelessly connected to your smartphone, able to use all the processing power on your smartphone to provide a digital overlay to the physical world that you're looking at around you. Um, and that is going to transform shop. It's going to transform a lot of other things, but it's certainly going to transform shopping. Imagine pulling into the parking lot of a store, walking towards the entrance, and in the corner of your glasses pops up a message. Welcome, Alicia, from whoever the store manager
Mhm.
is today. Right? As you go into the store, the system's got access to your shopping list. So it begins providing wayfinding to you, directing you where to go in the store to find each new item. Maybe you've also created a health profile of, different diets you like or nutritional needs you have or food allergies and so on. Imagine going down the aisle, and if you need gluten-free foods, every package of a gluten-free product begins to sort of light up as you walk down the aisle, making it easy to find foods that are relevant or beneficial to you, or things that are on a special promotion just for you. There's no end to where this kind of technology goes. And we're going to see this come into the market. We're already beginning to see the beginnings of it with like
I was
Meta's
going to ask
new
if
AR
those two things
glasses.
were connected. So yeah, I agree.
So that's sort of the
Yeah.
first wave of it. But Apple, Samsung, Google, and others, uh, these next generation glasses are already in the supply
Mm,
chain. We're going to see this coming into the market within the next 18 months or so.
mm,
And it is going to be
mm.
transformative. So that's a big one I'd point to. The next one I would point to would be, and again, AI is in everything, right? But it's AI powering up business process
Yep.
automation. So it's software taking over different processes within companies, within organizations, right? Maybe it's an accounts payable process, a marketing process, that type thing. We're beginning to see that really take hold, and we're going to see that explode here. The third one I just touch on briefly, and again, this is all driven by that innovation flywheel, is this whole notion of let's think of it as sort of personalized food
Mm-hmm.
guidance, right? There's different articles that have been in the press lately around how the population of the United States is aging so much, and yet at the same time, people are sicker. I think it's something like 60% of Americans have one or more health conditions that are typically responsive to the foods we eat. So imagine being able to get personalized guidance to specific products that can help your health and well-being.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And honestly, that last point and the first point kind of marry to each other. And
It,
honestly, I feel like, seeing how retail media is evolving and how that's going into the store. I mean, maybe 5 years ago, I'd be like, get out of here with those glasses. I don't know about that. But like now that we're seeing how
yeah,
that category is evolving, it actually makes a lot of sense that that would be the next step or next wave, because that's an opportunity for retail
yes,
media, right? Being able to walk in, your loyalty information is integrated, and they say, hey, Gary, welcome back. Like, reminder, this is on sale, like this was on your list, but you may be interested
yeah.
in this thing, which is, a partner. So, I mean, it definitely seems a bit more feasible than maybe it would be in the past.
So you're absolutely right. And I think the big call out around retail media in that type of environment is it has got to be
Mm,
relevant to that individual shopper, right? I don't want, ads popping up in my glasses for things that are totally irrelevant to me. Don't advertise pet food to me
yeah.
if I don't have a pet.
Yeah. I don't want that on my smartphone or my desktop, let alone my glasses. I don't want that in my face,
That's
right?
right. That's
No, this has
right.
been fascinating, Gary. And I really appreciate you sharing such insight into the book, your inspiration, but also a lot of the tech trends that you're tracking. I guess with all of this in mind, right? I mean, obviously, the big point of recommendation for everyone right now is to check out the book and dig in a little bit further, right? But are there any action items, calls to action for the folks that are listening to this conversation, right? Who maybe want to be drivers of this change and really embrace this era of retail rather than being the ones who fight it. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. So yes. So obviously, read the book, but beyond that, it's really do some reading, do some studying to gain knowledge around the world that we're living in today, because the world we're living in today has never existed before, right? Where we're past the inflection point on this growth curve and things are accelerating every day. With that knowledge, hopefully will come understanding that things are not as they were yesterday. I think that knowledge and understanding has to be paired with some type of system, process, ongoing capability to discover, learn about, understand new innovation, new technologies, new capabilities coming into retail. And then the last thing is, I think more and more it becomes really important for retail and retailers to create a vision of what they think the future of retail looks like. If you look at retailers today, and we sort of referenced this early on in our conversation, retailers have a habit of, looking at the next hot technology. Well, gee, I read about these companies doing this, I better do the same thing. Retailers have a long history of that. I think the future is going to belong to retailers that are able to think outside the box and think about and develop and create their vision for the future of retail, because more and more technology is making nearly anything possible. And I think the successful retailers will be the ones who take advantage of that.
Excellent. Well, Gary, thanks again so much for taking the time out. It was a fascinating conversation, one that I think could continue for another hour. So appreciate you taking the time out.
There's a lot here.
And to all of you watching, definitely be sure to check out Gary's book, Bionic Retail, and all of the incredible insights he's shared over the years across digital and physical channels about what's happening in retail today and what is possible for tomorrow. And of course, if you're looking for more great insights, definitely be sure to check out our Retail Think Tank Content Hub. We are having discussions, ideation sessions of sorts with folks like Gary over the next few months. So when you sign up for the hub, you get the latest and greatest delivered right to your inbox. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.